The Syriac Apocalypse of Daniel. The annotated translation. By the power of God we record the revelation which was revealed to Daniel the prophet in the land of Persia and Elam. In the kingdom of Darius the Mede, who ruled over Persia, and in the kingdom of Alpaktan, king of Babylon, I have seen these visions, I, Daniel the prophet, and these prophecies were revealed to me following those visions of which I had seen previously, as well as that prophecy which was revealed to me by the Holy Spirit during the years of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who came up against the land of Judah and the holy city of Jerusalem, as he had been commanded by God, to besiege it and to bring distress upon it. King Nebuchadnezzar came up against Judah and besieged it, for God had delivered it into his hands. He plundered and destroyed it, made it a tributary, and brought it into captivity. He also took the treasure which was in the temple of God and all the service implements of the sanctuary, the gold and silver, cups and bowls, the lovely aspergilla, forks, pitchers, the altar table, the 7-branched lampstand, the inner golden pillars of the tabernacle, and that great ephod which the high priest wore, which had 12 stones on its shoulders, with the names of the sons of Jacob inscribed on them, as well as the priestly vestments, the precious stones, the sapphires and beryls, which were in the sanctuary from the time of King David and Solomon his son after him, the entire treasure of King Solomon and all of the kings who were after him in Jerusalem, even the great golden throne on which the King Solomon used to sit on. And King Nebuchadnezzar took away the booty and spoil of Jerusalem, as well as women and children, cattle and beasts, garments and fine ornaments, together with silver and gold. He took God's glorious implements with him and brought them to Babylonia. We too were in captivity and exile, I, Daniel, and all the young men of my age, sons of Jewish men chosen to serve in the king's palace and to stand in the king's palace according to rank. The great God of my fathers bestowed upon me a spirit of wisdom, a spirit of knowledge, and a spirit of understanding, and I excelled in every kind of wisdom over those of my age, who were there with me in the land of Babylon and of the Chaldeans, because I kept the commandments of my God, and also because I did not do evil against his laws nor his judgments. I revealed and explained what would happen in Babylonia, and concerning everything that had happened to the former kings who were in Babylonia in those days. I was standing in the gate of king of Babylon in the royal house of the Chaldeans, yet none of the wise men, Chaldeans, and consilators of judgment was able to triumph over me in Babylonia. I revealed and explained the vision of the statue whose head was of gold, and its feet of iron, and the stone of which shattered it, and of the tree which was uprooted and its roots cut off, and of the palm of a hand which wrote on the wall of the royal palace. All the prophecies and visions were revealed to me, while my accusers, the Chaldean men, threw me into the lion's den. Yet the God of my fathers sent an angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they did not destroy me, but cut down my enemies and their children. When Nebuchadnezzar went mad, and Belteshazzar his son ruled over him and took over the Chaldean kingdom, he invited his nobles, his lords, his wives, and his concubines to a banquet, and brought in the golden and silver surface implements, the cups and bowls from the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, which Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had brought from the house of God. From them the king of Babylon drank wine, he himself and his wives and his concubines, and so reviled the living God. Then the palm of the hand of anger was found and wrote in this way concerning the king what would befall him, and the living God was angry with him. King Sennacherib went up from Assyria, from the city of Nineveh, and took possession of the entire land which was King Belteshazzar's, and he ruled in it. The Esarhaddon, his son, assumed kingship after him over Assyria and Nineveh. At that time the Babylonians and Chaldeans drew near and slandered me to Sennacherib, king of Assyria, who then sought to carry me off and kill me. Then it was revealed to me by God Most High that it was Satan who had incited him against me. So I withdrew to the land of Persia, to the royal palace of King Cyrus. While I was there in Persia, God endowed me with honor and friendship on the part of King Cyrus. I was brought before him and told King Cyrus everything that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had done in the land of Judah, and to the citizens of Jerusalem, about the spoil and the booty of which he had brought with him from there, about the golden cups and the implements of beauty from the temple of the Lord which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had brought from the land of Judah, as well as about the golden throne on which King Solomon used to sit, the precious stones and the sapphires, and about the precious beads of which used to be kept in the treasury of King Solomon, which he had taken as spoil and brought to Babylon. And I urged Cyrus, king of Persia, that he should march against Babylonia, fight against it, and capture it, and that he should seize these treasures and those implements of the sanctuary of which King Nebuchadnezzar had brought to Babylon, and to remain there. The great King Cyrus arose with an army of horsemen, and with many chariots of the Persians and Elamites. They went and besieged Babylon, and breached her walls, and demolished her towers. They captured her, and entered into her, and laid her waste. But King Sennacherib fled the city, and went to his former land, to Assyria and Nineveh. The great King Cyrus entered into Babylon, and walked around in her, and in the entire treasury of the Babylonian king. He plundered Babylon, and led her into captivity, and he took the gold and silver implements, as well as all the service implements of which the king Nebuchadnezzar had brought from the kings of Judah, and the entire treasure and the booty of the kings of Babylon that was found among the Chaldeans and the Babylonians, and King Cyrus took them. And I, Daniel, was wise, knowing all the implements, and showed them to Cyrus, king of Persia, the implements which were among the Chaldeans and the Babylonians, all the implements which had come from Jerusalem to the land of Babylon. King Cyrus handed those implements over to his chief eunuch, the service implements, the cups and bowls, buckets and aspergilla, forks and pitchers, the altar table, the 7-branched lampstand, and the beads of beryl which were attached to it, and also the precious stones, pearls, pillars, and the golden dishes of the tabernacle. And that great ephod which the high priest wore, which had 12 stones on its shoulders, with the names of the sons of Jacob inscribed on them, and the vestments from the time of King David, and the golden throne on which King Solomon used to sit. Everything which was found in Babylon, and which King Nebuchadnezzar had brought, King Cyrus carried from Babylon, and brought it to Elam and Persia. Babylonia submitted to Persia and Elam, as I had foretold to Belteshazzar, based on the palm of the hand of which had written some of the words of God on the palace wall, that his kingdom would be given to the Medes and Persians, because they had drunk from the implements of the house of God. As they were going up from Babylon to Persia and Elam, King Cyrus put these implements away with great reverence, and it was shown to him by God that he should go and deposit them in the mountain of Elam, in the mountain called Zelia, after the name of Mount Sinai, in order that they would keep them there until the latter time. He also inscribed the stone with a clean side, and placed it together with the implements in the mountain. Only the golden throne on which King Solomon used to sit did the king spare, and kept it in the treasury. In the middle of the night, Gamath the Magus rose, killed King Cyrus, and seized the kingship in Persia. And I became afraid and fled among the cities. I fled among the cities of Persia and Elam, lest he kill me. For I had been a courier of the king Cyrus, and lest I should have to go and show him that mountain in which those implements were deposited, which King Cyrus had brought from Babylon. For he, Gamath, had entered the treasury of King Cyrus, and had found King Solomon's golden throne. Gamath brought it out, sat on it, and became boastful and blasphemous. It was shown to me by God that the kingdom was to remain for a short while only. The kingdom of Gamath the Magus, who ruled after Cyrus the Persian, lasted 6 months, and his nobles plotted against him and killed him. They seized the kingship of Darius Bagdath Bar Artaban, and assumed the authority of Cyrus, king of Persia, and stood in the gate of the kings. King Darius wrote a letter about me to all Persian provinces, and found me in the great city of Elam. I got up and came to the gate of King Darius. Then he began to force me to go and to show him these implements of the sanctuary of which Cyrus the Persian had put away. For he had seen the throne of King Solomon, which King Nebuchadnezzar had brought from Jerusalem to Babylon, and which King Cyrus had brought up to Persia, because he had seen its splendor and beauty, whose likeness no human hands could fashion. And he forced me to go and to show him where that treasure was hidden. At that time God sent a heavenly angel who struck King Darius, and took away the light of his eyes, and he became very afraid and was shaken. It was shown to him in a nocturnal vision that because of the evil thoughts he had, he should go and take the implements of the divine treasure. And it was shown to him in the vision that he should go to Jerusalem, and go up to the house of the Lord and worship there, and there the light of his eyes would be given to him. The great King Darius sent and called for me that I should go with him to Jerusalem. Then he went up to Jerusalem with a mighty army, and with many chariots, horsemen, and soldiers. We came up to Jerusalem, to the place of the house of my fathers. Yet we found Jerusalem ravaged and void of her citizens, and deserted by her residents. We also found there some of my kinsmen, but people of my age, who had also been there during my time, during those days before Jerusalem had been carried off into captivity, I did not find. King Darius entered into the city and walked into the sanctuary furthermore. I washed him in the pool of Shiloh, and he believed in the God of my fathers. He worshipped in the sanctuary, his eyes were opened, and he saw the light, praising the living God, and he walked through all the streets of Jerusalem. King Darius summoned all the elders who had grown old and could be found in Jerusalem, and the priests who were spared from King Nebuchadnezzar's sword, and the old men who had grown old in years. He inquired of them, and they told him about the treasure of which King Nebuchadnezzar had taken from there, about its beauty, and about the temple implements. Whenever King Darius inquired of those elders, they reported to him truthfully. They instructed him about each thing in their places, and he gave them generous gifts. Everything which I had reported in Persia and Elam concerning Jerusalem he found to be true. Darius led with him some of the priests and of the elders, and they went with him to Persia and Elam. As they were marching, King Darius took control of many cities and conquered them as well as great cities, and many places came under his authority, and he also acquired the land of the water. I went with him to Persia and Elam. There great prophecies were revealed unto me, and I revealed surpassing visions without end and without number, mysteries and seasons and signs and wondrous visions. I expounded the times when the days of this age are ending, and the end of the completion of which the Holy Spirit had shown Daniel in Persia and Elam during the days of King Darius, that which is yet to come and which is hidden to be revealed at the end of days. And at the end of the season, and at the consummation of, there's a blank space here, in 7 weeks, in the season of seasons, and at the completion of times, the day and the mystery are to come. Wondrous is the vision of which I was revealed at the completion of times, and at the end of days, and at the end of seasons, and also at the completion of the rulers of Zion, and at the completion of Jerusalem. The wise and those who keep the covenant will understand this book, and at the end of ends, let them be moved by it. The people of the north will revolt, and there will be much motion and a great earthquake on the face of the earth. And like the tumult of the heavenly armies, it will be heard. There will be a great uproar from heaven, until high mountains will be made equal to plains. Then will be gathered the four winds of heaven, one to the other, and there will be a great and vicious battle. Also the corpses of the slain will be gathered like mounds. The western horn will rise and break the winds of heaven, and it will hold fast until the end of days. Signs will appear on earth, a commotion on the islands, and fire will be burning on them day and night. And there will be these signs in those times. The sun will be blotted out like sackcloth, and the moon clothed as with blood. The earth will quiver, and the sea, and many people will fall. In those times there will also be fallacy on the earth. A son will renounce his father, a brother his brother, and even a friend will deceive his friend. God will reject the earth. In those days there will be a great famine and pestilence, much rebellion and heat and blight, the sword and locusts and crawling locusts, which will devour the grass of the land. There will be in those days a great darkness covering the earth, a gloom for generations. The earth will conceive deceit, and will travail and bear iniquity. Dew will be withheld from heaven, rain from the clouds. And fire from the sun will devour the stones of the earth, and inflame in the northern regions. It will be burning day and night, while devouring dust and roots and stones and trees. In those days the earth will be in an uproar, and the sea. People will rise against people, kingdoms against kingdoms, and cities against cities. The strongholds of the earth, one against the other, will rebel. In those days angels will go out to the four winds of heaven to make the requital of anger from the midst of the earth. They will begin to strike and to destroy with the sword and with pestilence, also with all kinds of trials. And after this there will be silence on the earth, and peace will abound. Those who dwell in the world will be healed. The earth will be constrained by its inhabitants, and the seas and islands will be filled with settlements. Settlements and habitations will become towns, and villages will grow. Earth and sea will be adorned with towns and villages, as well as with palaces and buildings. Towns will be erected on the mountains, and walls and towers in the plains.